The Grand Galactic Council chamber shimmered with light from 1,000 hovering lanterns. Species from every corner of the known universe filled the hall, some seated in glass tanks filled with strange liquids, others perched on high stools, wings twitching, eyes blinking in patterns that only their kind understood. And in the center of it all stood the smallest being in the room, gripping a microphone stand that was nearly taller than him. Commander Abel of the Sadio warrior race looked tiny, but his voice carried the confidence of a general. His orange fur bristled, his twin antennae stood straight, like flags of defiance. This was supposed to be his moment of glory, his people's first time speaking before the entire Galactic Council. For weeks, they had waited for this opportunity, preparing speeches, polishing their armor, dreaming of respect. But the moment he finished his proud declaration, laughter filled the chamber. Every race laughed. The sound rolled around the circular room like thunder. The Aquarians in their water suits bubbled with glee. The bird-like Aven squealed, their crests standing tall in amusement. Even the morphic shapeshifters had melted halfway into puddles, their bodies shaking from uncontrollable laughter. Only one species didn't laugh, the humans. At the far end of the chamber, the human ambassador sat with his arms crossed, his face unreadable. His black uniform reflected the glowing council lights, and his dark eyes stayed fixed on Abel like a calm ocean hiding unseen storms. "I'm sorry to say this, little one." The human finally spoke, his voice deep and steady, echoing through the silent hall. "But you and your people wouldn't last 3 seconds." The words hit harder than a laser blast. Abel froze. His claws dug into the edge of the microphone stand. He felt the laughter rise again, louder, crueler, echoing off every wall. The insult burned in his chest like acid. His fur puffed out to twice its size, and his voice, though high-pitched, trembled with fury. "You think size decides courage? You think we are toys?" he shouted, his voice trembling but defiant. "We, the Sadio, do not run from mockery. We crush it under our claws. In 2 days, our warrior fleet will descend upon your planet, human. We will prove that even the smallest can roar louder than giants." Gasps echoed through the chamber, quickly drowned by another wave of laughter. The humans remained silent. Abel's anger flared hotter. He glared around the hall, at the hundreds of alien faces smirking at him. "You laugh now," he growled, his fur quivering. "But when the Sadio banner flies over Earth, when your strongest fall before our blades, you will remember this day." He turned dramatically to leave, forgetting that the table was 3 times taller than him. The crowd burst into new laughter as he stared down at the long drop to the floor. His tail twitched. His pride screamed not to look weak, but his body refused to jump. A nearby alien shouted, "Need help getting down, mighty warrior?" Abel's ears burned. He stiffly marched toward the small mechanical platform he'd arrived on and rode it down with as much dignity as a 2-foot-tall soldier could muster. The laughter followed him like a storm cloud. As the platform touched the floor, he didn't look up. But as he walked out of the chamber, he risked one last glance. The human ambassador was still watching him, calm, quiet, expression unreadable. No laughter, no mockery, just that cold, serious gaze. Abel misread it, of course. He thought it was fear. In his mind, the human was already worried, terrified, even, that Earth would soon face true warriors. Real fighters. Not giant brutes, but disciplined soldiers with courage sharper than steel. Back in his quarters, Abel began issuing orders. The Sadio fleet would prepare immediately. Every ship would be armed. Every soldier ready. They would strike Earth not to destroy it, but to earn respect, the only currency that mattered among the stars. Outside the council building, space traffic drifted by like glowing fish in a cosmic sea. Abel stared out from his window, eyes reflecting the lights of distant worlds. 3 seconds, he whispered to himself, his voice soft but full of rage. We'll show them what 3 seconds can do. He didn't realize, not yet, that humanity's calm wasn't arrogance, it was confidence. They didn't laugh because they didn't need to. And in just 2 days, Abel and his brave little fleet would discover why. 2 suns rose above the crimson horizon of the Sadio homeworld as Commander Abel stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Brave Spirit. Hundreds of ships floated behind him in tight formation, their hulls glowing with engine light. Each vessel was small, sleek, and armed with weapons powerful enough to shatter mountains. To other races, it might have looked like a swarm of shining insects. To the Sadio, it was a storm of glory about to descend upon a legend, the human world called Earth. Fleet status. Abel asked, his voice steady, his antenna twitching with tension. 300 ships, all armed and ready, replied General Lax, his purple fur streaked with white scars of old battles. Every warrior is aboard. Every cannon charged. General Iza, standing beside him, flicked her bright pink antenna. We are ready, Commander. Ready to prove the galaxy wrong. Abel's gaze turned to the enormous blue-green marble projected on the main screen, the image of Earth. Even from millions of kilometers away, it looked alive, dangerous, untamed. Clouds moved like muscles under its skin. Oceans glittered like watchful eyes. This is the planet they fear, Abel said softly. A world of storms, volcanoes, beasts, and humans. A quiet fell over the bridge. Every Sadio had heard stories about humans, the survivors of a death world, a species that thrived where others would perish. Their bones were strong, their instincts sharper than any blade, and their rage was famous. But none of that mattered to Abel. His pride burned brighter than fear. He pressed a button on his control panel. Across the fleet, a signal echoed through every ship. Warriors of the Sadio. Abel's voice boomed through every speaker. For centuries, they called us cute, harmless, toys for their amusement. But today, we remind them who we are. We are small, yes, but small things bite hardest. A roar rose from every ship, thousands of high-pitched voices shouting as one. The sound shook the decks and sent ripples through the dark void. Abel raised his curved sword toward the holographic planet. Today, we descend upon the humans' death world. They say its gravity crushes, its air burns, its creatures devour. Perfect. Let the galaxy see that the Sadio fear nothing. We come for honor, not conquest. We come to show that courage has no size. The cheering grew louder. Some warriors beat their chest armor. Others raised rifles into the air. Even the youngest recruits felt their hearts swell with fire. Then Abel lowered his sword. Begin the jump. Stars stretched into blinding lines. Space folded, and the fleet vanished into hyperspace. Moments later, they burst out of warp above Earth. The planet filled every window, a living jewel of oceans and forests. Lightning danced through clouds like silver veins. On the bridge, even the bravest warriors went silent. It was beautiful and terrifying. Scanning atmosphere, reported the navigator, a green-furred cadet named Pip. Oxygen levels high. Gravity 0.98 of home standard. Radiation, normal. It's safe. Abel nodded. Then we land. Commander, General Iza said carefully. The humans, should we warn them before we arrive? Abel's fur bristled. Warn them? No. Let them see our courage. Let them look to the sky and know the Sadio have arrived. Thrusters roared. Flames wrapped around the hulls as they pierced the upper atmosphere. The ships glowed like meteors streaking across the blue sky. Inside the brave spirit, panels rattled. Alarms blinked red. The sound of burning air thundered like war drums. Steady, Abel shouted. Remember your training. They broke through the clouds and saw green lands, rivers like silver snakes, mountains like sleeping beasts. Pip's voice shook with awe. It's so alive. Alive, Abel repeated. And waiting for us. Selecting landing site, Pip continued. Large open field detected. Near human settlement. Civilian presence. Multiple life signs, including younglings. Abel frowned. Children? No. We are warriors, not monsters. Find a clear space nearby, far enough to avoid harm. Found one, Pip said. Half a kilometer away. Perfectly clear. Good, Abel said. That will be the place of honor. Prepare the fleet. 300 ships descended together, forming perfect rows as they neared the surface. Wind tore across their hulls. Dust spiraled beneath them. Then, impact. Soft, controlled, precise. The Sadio had landed on Earth. Silence filled the bridge. Only the gentle hum of the engines remained. Abel exhaled slowly, his chest heavy with pride. Mark this moment, he said quietly. Today, history changes. The galaxy laughed at us. But now, we stand on the humans' death world, and we are still breathing. He looked out the viewport, where forests swayed and sunlight poured across endless grass. For a brief second, he felt small again, not because of shame, but because of wonder. He didn't know that the world he had just touched was far more dangerous and far more surprising than any battlefield he had ever imagined. And somewhere below, unseen through the clouds, human eyes were already watching. When the brave spirit's ramp lowered, sunlight poured into the landing bay like molten gold. Commander Abel blinked against the sudden brightness. His enhanced visor adjusted automatically, filtering the glare. The air that flowed in was thick, rich, and full of scent, strange flowers, wet soil, something sweet but sharp, like the breath of a giant creature. For a moment, the commander said nothing. He just stood there at the edge of the ramp, staring at the alien world that stretched before him. Earth. It was green, so green it almost hurt to look at. The grass was taller than his knees, maybe his waist. Each blade was thick and alive, swaying gently in the wind. Towering trees surrounded the clearing, their trunks wide enough to build houses inside. Birds called from unseen branches, and insects hummed in the air like tiny engines. This, whispered General Izier, stepping beside him, is the death world. Abel's fur rippled. It's larger than I expected. General Lax chuckled, adjusting his plasma rifle. Commander, I think their plans could eat us before their soldiers arrive. Abel shot him a look, half irritated, half amused. Careful, General. Don't give the planet ideas. The three stepped down onto the grass. It bent softly beneath their boots, but the texture was strange, smooth yet sharp, almost metallic. Abel crouched and touched a blade between his claws. It sliced a hairline cut across his glove. He blinked. Remarkable. Even their plants have weapons. Before anyone could respond, a voice crackled over the comms. Commander, this is Scout Unit 12. I'm injured. Abel straightened. Report, soldier. What happened? Static buzzed, followed by a panicked squeak. Sir, I stepped on one of the green ground blades. It cut me. I'm bleeding. For a full second, no one spoke. Are you telling me, Abel said slowly, that you were wounded by grass? Yes, sir, but it's very sharp grass. General Izier covered her mouth to hide a laugh. Lax coughed loudly, pretending it was a radio glitch. Abel closed his eyes, counting silently to 3 before answering. Send a medic. And tell him not to touch anything until I say so. He switched to private channel. First blood of the campaign, he muttered. The grass won. Despite the small embarrassment, the Sadio soldiers began to disembark in neat rows, their compact suits glowing with faint blue lines of energy. Around the landing zone, 20 ships had already deployed, their engines cooling with soft hisses. The warriors looked around in awe. Some raised scanners. Others simply stared at the vast forest like pilgrims seeing a holy place. Abel's heart swelled with pride. Look around you, warriors. This is Earth, the death world. And yet, we stand upon it unharmed. Cheers rippled through the formation. Small, high-pitched voices echoed in harmony across the clearing. The sound carried far into the trees. Too far. Something answered. A low, rolling growl. Abel froze. The sound was deep, almost too deep to come from a throat so near. It vibrated through the ground, rumbling beneath their feet. What was that? Izier whispered. Maybe thunder, Lax suggested, though the sky was clear. Abel's antenna tilted toward the sound. Form a perimeter. Weapons ready. The growl faded. Then silence. Then, rustling in the tall grass. Contact, west side, shouted a soldier. Movement. Abel raised his plasma rifle, aiming at the disturbance. The grass parted, revealing a small creature with wide eyes and twitching whiskers. It darted away so fast that no one had time to fire. Commander, said Lax, lowering his weapon. I think we were just ambushed by a rodent. Abel's voice was flat. A very stealthy rodent. Note that in the mission log. The tension broke, and laughter spread through the troops. Even Abel allowed a small grin. The moment felt lighter, until another shriek sliced through the comms. Sir, something's flying toward us. Abel looked up. A striped blur buzzed through the air, landing on a warrior's helmet. The warrior swatted it. Stand still. Izier shouted. It's tiny. The buzzing grew louder. The creature jabbed its stinger straight into the warrior's paw. By the stars. It stabbed me. The soldier screamed, waving his arm wildly. It's stabbing again. Why is it so angry? Several nearby warriors panicked, firing into the air. Blue plasma bolts sizzled harmlessly past the small, furious insect. The creature looped once, twice, and stung another soldier before zipping away. Cease fire. Abel barked. All units hold. Silence returned, broken only by labored breathing. Lax whispered, "What in the void was that?" Database identifies it as a bee, Pip reported through the comms. A small earth life form that collects nectar. And, defends itself with poison. Abel exhaled. Wonderful. We have made war on a pollinator. The troops slowly regrouped, embarrassed and nursing tiny stings. Abel broadcast across the fleet channel, his tone firm but calm. Attention all units. New order. Do not touch anything that moves, buzzes, or looks interesting. Earth's wildlife is apparently armed and easily offended. Nervous laughter trickled through the ranks. Abel turned toward his generals. Prepare the challenge transmission. It's time to speak with the humans. Pip's voice returned. Signal ready, Commander. Abel lifted his chin. Then send it. Announce that the Sadio fleet has arrived on their world. Tell them we seek honorable combat. Tell them we await their bravest. Transmission sent. The message vanished into Earth's network of satellites, radio towers, and digital webs. Abel stood silently, staring into the endless green horizon. Soon, he said softly. Soon they will come. But the planet did not answer. Only the sound of leaves moving in the wind, and somewhere far away, the faint hum of another bee. The clearing was quiet again. Too quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Commander Abel stood on a fallen branch, his small figure straight and sharp against the green horizon. Behind him, rows of Sadio soldiers waited in tense silence. The message to humanity had been sent almost an hour ago. There was still no response. The warriors shifted nervously. Their bright fur flickered in the sunlight, their weapons gleaming. Somewhere behind them, a ship's engine hummed softly, like a heartbeat waiting to quicken. They heard us, General Lax said at last. They're just preparing an ambush. Humans never ignore a challenge. Abel nodded. Good. Let them come. General Iza, however, wasn't convinced. Her pink fur rippled with unease. Or maybe they don't take us seriously. Maybe they think we're cute. Abel snapped. His tail twitched. They won't think that when they face our fire. Before anyone could respond, a sound drifted across the clearing. A soft rustle, low and steady, like the sliding of silk over stone. Every Sadio froze. The sound came from the tree line to the west. Abel's antenna twitched toward it. Movement, he whispered. The soldiers immediately raised their weapons. A dozen rifles pointed toward the dense brush. The rustling grew louder, closer, deliberate. Steady, Abel ordered, his eyes narrowing. Whatever it is, we face it as warriors. The leaves parted. Something emerged. It was low to the ground, walking on four legs, its fur orange with black stripes and patches of white. Its tail waved lazily in the air. It looked around with calm, curious eyes, green and bright, like twin lasers. The creature stopped, tilted its head, and made a sound that none of the Sadio had ever heard before. Meow. The warriors blinked. Some tilted their helmets as if trying to translate the noise. Pip's voice came over the comms, confused. Commander, the universal translator doesn't recognize that word. Abel's fur puffed. Of course it doesn't. This is clearly a human weapon. A biowar machine. The creature stepped closer. Its paws were silent on the grass. Its long tail twitched in the air like a whip preparing to strike. It's smaller than expected, Lax muttered. Size means nothing, Abel replied, though his voice was slightly higher than usual. This could be their scout unit. The creature stopped just 5 meters away. It sat down, calmly, casually. Then it began cleaning itself. With slow, deliberate movements, it licked its paw and wiped its face. The sight was so absurd that even the disciplined Sadio ranks wavered. Someone whispered, maybe it's peaceful? Abel frowned. Peaceful? Don't be fooled by its act. Look at the eyes. Cold. Calculating. Sir, Iza whispered, it's adorable. Abel glared at her. That's how they lure you in. Just then, one of the younger soldiers, Private Kiro, took an uncertain step backward. The creature's head turned sharply toward him. Its green eyes narrowed. Commander, Kiro squeaked. It's looking at me. Hold your ground. Abel barked. But Kiro panicked. He lifted his plasma rifle and fired a quick shot. The blue bolt struck the creature's side with a loud zap. Everyone expected it to vaporize. Instead, the beast simply froze, blinked once, and then it hissed. The sound was primal, like compressed thunder. Its ears flattened, its back arched, and with terrifying speed, it leapt. In one bound, it was on Kiro. Its claws raked across his suit, sending sparks flying as the shield flared. The impact threw him backward several meters. The creature landed gracefully, tail twitching. Then, with a final angry hiss, it turned and darted back into the bushes, vanishing like a ghost. Silence fell again. Only Kiro's heavy breathing filled the comms. I'm okay, he gasped. Suit held. But it was fast, so fast. Abel exhaled slowly, lowering his weapon. Around him, dozens of soldiers stood frozen, staring at the spot where the creature had disappeared. General Lax broke the silence first. Commander, I think that wasn't a human weapon. Izie nodded. Agreed. It acted alone. No coordination, no tech signature. Just instincts. Abel hesitated, his pride wrestling with reason. So, it was a wild predator? Most likely, Lax said. A native beast. A strong one. Abel's antenna drooped for a moment, then straightened again. Then keep that to yourselves. If the troops learned that a random Earth creature attacked our soldier and survived a plasma hit, morale will crumble. What should we tell them? Izie asked softly. Abel looked at the line of nervous warriors. We tell them it was a test from the humans. A probe to measure our strength, and we passed. Both generals exchanged a doubtful glance, but nodded. Abel turned back to the clearing, raising his voice. Warriors, you have seen the first challenge Earth sent us. You stood your ground and forced the beast to flee. This is proof of our courage. The humans now know. The Sadio cannot be defeated. Cheers rippled through the ranks, shaky but sincere. The fear in their eyes dimmed a little. Abel took a deep breath and turned toward the horizon. The sunlight had begun to soften, painting the trees in gold. Somewhere, far beyond the forest, lay human cities. Massive, unknown, full of mystery. He tapped his comms. Pip, any response from the humans yet? Not yet, Commander, came the reply. But wait. I'm detecting movement. Several large signals approaching from the north. Abel's pulse quickened. Finally, he murmured. They're coming. He raised his voice, filled with command and pride. All units. Form up. The humans approach. Ready your weapons. Hundreds of Sadio soldiers snapped into formation, their rifles glowing, their armor humming. The air thickened with tension. From the tree line, shapes began to move, tall, two-legged silhouettes, glinting in the fading light. Abel smiled fiercely. At last, he whispered, let the galaxy watch. The real battle begins now. The golden light of late afternoon spread across the clearing, painting every blade of grass in warm fire. Commander Abel stood at the front of his army, his fur combed by the wind, his antenna angled toward the forest. Behind him, 300 Sadio warriors waited in perfect formation, small, bright, and deadly. Their armor shimmered with electric light. Their weapons hummed softly, ready to strike. Then, the forest began to move. At first, it was only shadows, tall, thin, shifting among the trees. Then came the crunch of heavy footsteps. The sound alone made some of the Sadio twitch. The steps were slow and deliberate, the kind of sound made by something that knew it didn't have to hurry. Targets approaching, reported Pip through comms. Multiple large life forms. Humanoid. Commander, they're huge. Abel's chest tightened. Humans, he whispered. They finally come. The bushes parted. And there they were. 5 tall figures stepped into the open, walking side by side. The smallest of them was still 3 times Abel's height. Their dark uniforms glowed faintly with the reflection of the setting sun. No armor, no visible weapons, just calm, confident giants strolling toward an army of tiny, furious creatures. The one in the center lifted a hand in greeting. His face was familiar. The same calm eyes, the same unreadable expression. Ambassador Hale. Abel's fur bristled. So, the human had come to face him after all. He activated his external speakers, his voice booming across the field. Humans of Earth. I am Commander Abel of the Sadio warrior fleet. We come by our warrior code to face you in honorable combat. No tricks, no cowardice. Fight us, and let courage decide. Every rifle in the Sadio line lifted as one. A bright shimmer of blue light rippled across their weapons. The air vibrated with anticipation. But the humans didn't flinch. They didn't even raise their hands in defense. They simply stood there, watching. The ambassador glanced around at the colorful sea of tiny warriors, his face calm, maybe too calm. Then he spoke, his voice deep and unhurried. "Thank you," he said, "for not landing near the children's playground." The translator rendered his words perfectly. The meaning hit the Sadio like a missile. Abel blinked. Children playground? Hale pointed toward the trees behind them, where distant laughter echoed faintly. "Yes, you landed in a public park. There are families nearby. Appreciate you avoiding the slides." A wave of murmurs spread through the Sadio ranks. Abel's fur puffed again in irritation. "We are not beasts who harm the young," he shouted. "We are warriors. We came for battle, not toys." Hale's lips curved into a faint smile. "I never said you were beasts." The way he said it made it worse. Polite, calm, slightly amused. Like a teacher talking to an excited student. Abel's claws flexed. "You mocked us at the council. You said we'd last 3 seconds. Yet we stand on your death world, breathing your air, surviving your beasts. Tell your people we demand battle." Hale sighed quietly and rubbed his forehead. The men beside him exchanged looks, trying not to laugh. "You've been here an hour?" "An hour and 15 minutes, Abel said proudly. The ambassador nodded slowly. "That's impressive. Very impressive." The Sadio army stood taller. The compliment, though oddly gentle, was still a victory in their eyes. Then Hale added, "You've proven yourselves. Truly. So we surrender." For a moment, not even the wind dared to move. Abel blinked once, then twice. "You what?" "We surrender," Hale repeated, hands raised. "Earth yields to the mighty Sadio." A wave of confused whispers swept through the tiny army. They surrender? Without fighting? Is this victory? General Lax looked as lost as the rest. "Commander, this doesn't seem right." Abel's brain spun like a broken thruster. The humans weren't afraid. They weren't angry. They weren't even sweating. They were smiling, calmly giving up. It felt wrong. "No," Abel shouted. "You can't surrender without a fight. There must be proof, trophies of victory, something the council can see." Hale lowered his hands, pretending to think. His gaze flicked to the city skyline visible through the trees. Then a grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Ah," he said softly. "Proof. Yes, I think I know what you need." Abel's antenna straightened. "A symbol of conquest." "Exactly that." The ambassador's voice was smooth, reassuring. "Something Earth treasures deeply. Something worth fighting for. Follow me." Without another word, Hale turned and began walking down the paved path that cut through the park. His companions followed, still expressionless. Abel hesitated only a second before signaling to his generals. "Form escort formation. 50 soldiers with me. The rest hold position." The tiny army moved after the giant, their metal boots tapping rhythmically against the stone. Humans nearby, joggers, families, couples, stopped to stare. Some pointed. Some took pictures. "Are those teddy bears?" a woman whispered. "Alien teddy bears," another replied. "Look, they have little guns." Abel heard every word through his translator. His jaw tightened. "Teddy bears," he muttered darkly. "They will regret that word." General Isaac tried to hide a laugh. "Commander, maybe they mean it with respect?" "Respect," Abel growled, "does not sound like awe." As they walked, the humans continued to follow Hale toward the far end of the park. The sun dipped lower, turning the sky red and gold. A light breeze stirred the trees, carrying the smell of something sweet, something sugary, almost irresistible. Abel sniffed. "What is that scent?" Hale smiled without turning around. "That, Commander, is the smell of humanity's most beloved treasure." The Sadio soldiers looked at each other, curious and suspicious. Abel's claws flexed. "Then lead us to it, Ambassador," he said. "We will claim it as proof of our triumph." Hale nodded once. "Oh, you will," he said quietly, and for the first time since the council meeting, his smile reached his eyes. And as the small army of furry warriors followed him toward that mysterious treasure, not one of them realized they were marching straight into the sweetest trap humanity had ever set. The Sadio soldiers followed the human ambassador through the winding paths of the park, their small boots clicking in neat rhythm against the pavement. The sun had dipped low now, the sky painted with orange and violet streaks. The humans walking nearby slowed down or stopped entirely, staring in wonder. Some whispered. Some lifted strange rectangular devices and pointed them like weapons, though the devices only flashed with light instead of fire. "Are they filming us?" asked General Isaiah, glancing nervously at the glowing screens. "Perhaps," said Commander Abel, puffing out his chest. "Let them. History must remember this day, the day Earth fell." "Commander," General Lax muttered. "They seem amused." Abel's tail twitched. They laughed to hide their fear. Lax didn't argue, but his tone made it clear he didn't entirely believe that. Ahead, the tall human ambassador Hale walked calmly, hands behind his back, leading them through the trees. He spoke softly to one of his companions, who tapped on a small black device at his wrist. Abel caught pieces of their conversation but couldn't understand the meaning. Words like containment, civilian safety, and press lockdown passed between them. Finally, the group emerged into a small open area where a large white vehicle stood parked beside the path. It was box-shaped, decorated with bright images of smiling humans and colorful swirls of frozen food. At its side was a window, and inside sat a woman wearing a red apron and a scarf around her hair. A cheerful tune played from hidden speakers, a repetitive jingle that somehow made the Sadio soldiers instinctively reach for their weapons. "Commander," whispered Isaiah, her antenna twitching. "That music, it feels like psychological warfare." "Hold your fire," Abel commanded quickly. "We will not start the next interstellar war because of humans singing." Hale turned, smiling that calm, disarming smile. "Here it is," he said proudly. "Humanity's treasure box." Abel blinked. "This machine?" "Yes," Hale replied. "Inside lies our most valued resource. A delicacy so precious that humans of all ages will chase this box through cities just for a taste." He gestured dramatically toward the painted images, cones, cups, and bars covered in colors the Sadio had no names for. Abel's soldiers exchanged confused looks. "This is a food vault?" Isaiah asked. Hale nodded solemnly. "Indeed. The sacred storage of ice cream." The translator repeated the unfamiliar term in Sadio dialect as ice cream. The word sounded ancient and powerful, as if spoken by gods. Abel crossed his arms. "And humans value this so much?" "More than you could imagine," Hale said gravely. "Wars have been fought over the last scoop at home dinners." He approached the window and spoke to the woman inside. She blinked at the sight of the small aliens behind him, then burst into a delighted laugh. "Oh my gosh, they're adorable," she exclaimed, clapping her hands. Abel's ears flattened. "Adorable," he muttered darkly. The woman quickly began preparing something inside the vehicle. Hale turned to the Sadio. "Please wait. She's fetching the treasure." The sound of metal spoons clinking echoed from within the truck. Moments later, the woman appeared at the window, holding a tray of small cups, each filled with a shimmering, colorful substance that steamed faintly in the warm air. The smell hit the Sadio like perfume. Sweet, creamy, utterly alien. Abel's stomach growled audibly through his armor's audio pickup. Hale handed him a small cup and a thin, flat tool. "Try it." Abel frowned suspiciously. "What is this weapon?" "It's a spoon." Hale smiled. "For eating." Abel hesitated. His generals watched. His soldiers watched. Even the humans nearby watched, holding their glowing devices to record every moment. Slowly, Abel dipped the spoon into the soft, cold material and took a bite. For a heartbeat, he said nothing. His eyes widened. His tail froze mid-twitch. The sensation that spread through his mouth was like liquid lightning and velvet stars all at once. Cold, sweet, rich, and alive with flavor. "This," he whispered. "This is divine." Around him, the soldiers began tasting their own portions. Within seconds, the clearing was filled with squeaks of delight. General Lax dropped his spoon, clutching his chest. "By the ancestors, this is what victory tastes like." General Isaiah was sitting cross-legged, holding her cup with both paws. "I can taste colors," she mumbled dreamily. Even Pip reported over comms, voice trembling with joy. "Commander, ship sensors detect euphoria?" Abel took another bite, then another, until his cup was empty. He turned to Hale, eyes wide with honest admiration. "You have surrendered your greatest treasure to us freely. You have honor." Hale's smile softened. Of course, Earth values peace more than pride. And if sharing our treasure means friendship, then so be it. Abel straightened, raising his spoon like a sword. The Sadio accept this victory and this alliance. We shall bring this treasure home as proof that humanity has fallen and risen again as our friend. The Sadio army cheered, hundreds of small voices echoing through the park. They licked their spoons, trading flavors like soldiers comparing trophies. The woman behind the window snapped several pictures, giggling uncontrollably. Hale crouched beside Abel, lowering his voice. You did well, Commander. Truly, few species ever walk this planet without fear. You faced it with courage. Abel's chest swelled with pride. We came for respect. We leave with both respect and ice cream. Exactly, Hale said warmly. And that's what makes humans so dangerous, you know. Abel blinked. Dangerous? You surrendered. Hale chuckled quietly. We didn't surrender, Commander. We adapted. Abel frowned, unsure what that meant. But before he could ask, Hale stood up and clapped his hands. Enjoy your spoils, brave Sadio. Then, when you're ready, we'll escort you back to your ships. The little warriors cheered again, lifting their cups high. Sticky-furred, sugar-filled, and smiling like victors, they truly believed they had conquered Earth. And as the humans quietly took photos of the adorable invaders devouring dessert, the galaxy's most unlikely peace treaty was sealed. Not with blood, not with war, but with chocolate and vanilla. The night sky over Earth shimmered with stars as 300 Sadio ships prepared for departure. Their engines glowed blue, casting ripples of light across the quiet park that had, only hours ago, become a battlefield of spoons and sugar. The clearing was empty now, except for a few melting drops of ice cream and the faint laughter of human children in the distance. Commander Abel stood at the top of his ship's ramp, gazing at the horizon. The planet's air was cool against his fur. For a death world, it felt gentle, strange, unpredictable, but gentle. He inhaled deeply, trying to memorize the scent of it, grass, wind, and something sweet that still clung to his armor. General Lax approached, still licking a trace of vanilla from his glove. Commander, the fleet is ready. All ships report full departure readiness. And morale is extremely high. Abel smiled faintly. I can imagine. No one ever returns from a conquest with this much happiness, or this much sugar. General Izier walked up beside them, carrying a small cooler box proudly marked with human writing. I secured additional treasures, sir. The humans called it a take-home pack. For diplomatic purposes. Abel's antenna twitched with satisfaction. Excellent initiative, General. The Council will want evidence of our victory. Behind them, the humans were gathering near the landing site. Ambassador Hale stood at the front, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the tiny warriors prepare to leave. A few journalists and officials had joined him now, all smiling, all careful to keep a respectful distance. Abel marched down the ramp, his armor gleaming under the ship's lights. He stopped before Hale and saluted sharply. Ambassador Hale of Earth, he said formally, we, the Sadio, acknowledge your surrender and accept your friendship. You fought well in spirit. Hale tried not to laugh. And you, Commander Abel, have done what few have ever done. You landed on Earth, faced its nature, and lived to tell the story. That's quite an accomplishment. Abel tilted his head proudly. The Council will hear of it. They will learn that humanity respects the brave and rewards honor. You may have lost the war, but you have earned our esteem. Then we both win, Hale said softly. That's how peace should feel. For a moment, they simply stood there, one towering human and one tiny warrior, staring at each other with mutual respect. Around them, the hum of the ships rose in pitch, ready for liftoff. Hale crouched slightly, so he was eye level with Abel. You know, Commander, he said, his tone thoughtful. You remind me of us, humans. Small compared to the universe, but always loud enough to be noticed. Abel blinked, his fur rippling with confusion, then quiet pride. Perhaps, he said, we are not so different after all. Perhaps not, Hale replied with a warm smile. A loud whistle interrupted them. Pip's voice came through the comms. Commander, the fleet awaits your signal. Abel nodded once. It's time. He turned to his army, who stood ready aboard their ships, every one of them sticky, tired, and glowing with pride. "Warriors of the Sadio," he shouted. "We came seeking battle, but found something greater. Respect, friendship, and a treasure unlike any other. Remember this day? The day we conquered Earth, and were conquered by its kindness." A cheer erupted across the fleet. The sound rose into the night sky like music, wild, proud, ridiculous, and perfect. Abel climbed back aboard his ship. As the engines ignited, Hale raised a hand in farewell. Abel returned the gesture, his small paw raised high. "Farewell, human," he said over the external speakers. "Tell your people this. The Sadio do not forget their allies, nor their deserts." Hale laughed as the fleet lifted off. The ground trembled gently beneath him. Hundreds of glowing ships rose together, forming a formation so precise it looked like a constellation being born. Then, one by one, they vanished into the dark, streaks of blue light fading into the stars. Silence fell again. The park looked untouched, as if the entire event had been a strange dream. Only a few paper cups and spoons remained, scattered like trophies. Hale turned to his aides. "Contact the council," he said, voice calm but amused. "Tell them the situation was resolved peacefully." One of them hesitated. "Sir, what exactly should we call this mission?" Hale's smile widened. "Title it First Contact with the Sadio. Peace through creative diplomacy and chocolate ice cream." The aides exchanged baffled glances. Hale just chuckled. "They won't believe it," he added. "But that's fine. Some victories are too sweet to explain." He looked up one last time, where faint streaks of blue still shimmered among the stars. "Safe travels, little warriors," he murmured. "And don't ever change." Far above Earth, the Sadio fleet drifted in formation, leaving orbit behind. On the bridge of the Brave Spirit, Abel leaned back in his command chair, gazing at the shrinking planet on the view screen. General Lax stood beside him, arms folded. "Commander, do you think we truly conquered them?" Abel smiled slowly, his eyes reflecting the swirling blue marble below. "By the council's standards, yes. But in truth," he paused, letting the moment breathe. "Maybe the humans conquered us, with kindness. That's their greatest weapon." Isaiah giggled softly. "That, and the ice cream." Abel laughed quietly. "Yes, the ice cream." He turned to the stars ahead, tail flicking with renewed pride. "Set course for home. The galaxy will soon know the name of the Sadio, and perhaps their dessert." The engines flared. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. 300 ships full of small warriors who believed they had just won the greatest victory in the history of their species. And somewhere below, on a quiet planet called Earth, humans toasted the evening with cones of chocolate and vanilla, smiling, because they had just proven once again the most powerful truth in the galaxy. Sometimes, humanity doesn't win by fighting. It wins by sharing dessert. Soft ice cream.